Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai. It's time for another reading from Prema Mala, and this is the fourth video in the Loved Straight series. We've been reading about and journeying with a girl named Kubja. She lived in a city 5,000 years ago, but she still has a lot that she can teach us through the way that she lived her life and the way that she handled events that shaped her life and changed her existence. In the previous video, Kubja's life was just drastically transformed. And now in this video, we are going to find out what happens next. What happens in the moments after divine grace swoops in and completely changes a person's life. How can I repay you? He was looking into her eyes again, and Kubja was struggling to think, to breathe even. She felt his foot on hers, his toes that had first caught Kubja's attention pressing into her own. She looked down, entranced by the way his complexion looked against her own. It was a sight that she never wanted to lose for as long as she lived. She felt his finger under her chin as he urged her eyes up to his own. She almost protested having to look away from where his form joined with hers, but when she found herself enveloped in his amber-colored eyes again, the words dried up in her throat. A heart-stopping smile spread along the length of his full lips, and he lifted her chin, and with it, her entire form. Kubja felt the slightest trace of resistance, the faintest feeling of fear, and the briefest sensation of pain before she gave herself up to him. She knew that with him she would never be in danger. All she ever wanted to be was his. Never before had anyone laid eyes on Kubja, and now that he had, she would be forever changed. She would be whatever it was that he wanted her to be. She would shape her life around him. She made herself those promises as she surrendered her very life into his hands. He stood up straight, and all too soon the pressure on her chin was gone. Her mouth turned down in a pout. He was moving away from her. Surely he must have seen all that she offered with her eyes. Before he could move too far away, she caught the edge of his silken sash, pulling him back to her, her reflexes suddenly quicker than Kubja had ever remembered them being. His eyes widened briefly before roaming charmingly left and right, looking at his friends who were now laughing. "Where are you going? You must come to my house. Visit me. Everything I have, all that I am, is yours." Kubja clung to his sash, holding it tightly to her heart. Sham chuckled nervously, lifting a hand to ruffle his dark curls as his friends began to laugh at his expense. "Bravo, Kana! This beautiful girl deserves an answer." They jeered and taunted him. Kubja could hear none of it. She waited breathlessly for his answer. "I have come here just for you, after all. How could I deny anything you ask of me?" "I promise." He carefully extracted his sash from her grip, and Kubja finally allowed him to step away from her as she took a look at herself for the first time. No longer bent over, she stood up straight and tall, her shoulders squared and she held her head high proudly. She felt no discomfort. In fact, her heart thundered and her blood thrummed through her veins with the most incredible feeling of bliss. She was transformed. Her deformity was gone. It was a miracle. She stared, open-mouthed, at Sham's retreating form, his friends pulling and tugging him down the main road as they teased him, their laughter decorating Mathura city. Kubja began to laugh as she twirled, looking at her new form. She raised a hand to her mouth and called out as loudly as she could, "Sham, remember, you promised." She caught sight of velvet brown eyes through the throngs of people crowding the streets, also trying to catch a glimpse of the youths. He smiled at her, even as his friends pulled at him, but she could hear his voice clearly when he finally said, "I promise." Kubja felt like dancing. She felt like singing. Instead, she clutched her tray with its empty bowls and bottles and put her old life behind her. She lifted one of the empty bowls and brought it close to her face. She imagined that along with the fragrance of jasmine, she could smell Sham's own fragrance of musk, agru, and camphor, forever mingled with the offering that he had taken from her. Kubja giggled like a girl in love. She was. She would know no one but Sham. From today, she would wait for her Sham. That would be her life's work. So we can look at what Kubja has done, and after she's been transformed, she decides to dedicate her life to the source and the supreme being behind the divine energy that has completely changed her. We can look at how Kubja's outside circumstances were kind of forced on her. She had no say in whether she would have this deformity. But she took her circumstances and she welcomed an opportunity for change. And change was not easy by any means. There was fear, there was a little bit of pain, there was some resistance even. She had no idea what was going to happen to her, but she trusted in Krishna. She trusted that there was a person, there was this divine being, this supreme person that was always working for her highest good. She trusted that she would always be safe with him. And when she made that commitment to trust him, it took just a second, and everything changed. So we look at our circumstances and we see that there are so many outside forces that are kind of being just pushed on us left and right. We can look at our lives and we can look at the journey that our lives have taken, and we can say maybe we had no say in many of the twists and turns that have come up for us. But like Kubja, can we trust? Can we have faith that there is always that grace, that divine mercy, that supreme best friend that is always working in our favor, with us, for us, fighting for us every moment? Can we trust that we are constantly being guided and sheltered by that supreme person? If we can, then like Kubja, we find it possible to surrender to the blessings that come maybe in the form of some scary changes. So we will be talking more about Kubja in the next video. But before we go, I just want to leave you with a question. What happens when we look into the eyes of the one who knows us the best? The one who knows everything, the one who is the source of our entire existence, and the one who is behind every life that has ever been had. What happens when we look into the eyes of that divine being and we lay bare our souls? We open up ourselves completely. What happens when we come with all of our scars and faults and mistakes and all of the things that make us ashamed, all of the things that we'd like to hide? What happens when we take a moment not to hide away, but to do the thing that we're most afraid of? What happens when we lay it all out there before that supreme being who knows us the best? And instead of finding judgment and condemnation and a look and a feeling of disappointment, instead of finding all of that, we find nothing but love, acceptance, and ultimately liberation. What happens to our lives then? What kind of spiritual journey can we have then? If we surrender to that, what kind of spiritual life can we have? What happens to our spirituality? I think it's an adventure. Let me know what you think, and I will see you again soon.